been here, they say from time immemorial, we've been living with the bear. You leave them alone. They're not out to hurt anybody. They're out to get food. The animals of this world are important to us, you know, to our existence. But to my theory is you can keep killing bear here, you know, for a long time, and next year they're going to be right back again. You killed that bear, but there's going to be another one back. Like this year we had a sow and 4 cubs. There were 4 babies learning to do it again. And you're just going to have to kill bear and kill bear and kill bear if you keep the existing dump thing. And I don't think that's right.
Alaska is the largest state in the U.S. at 586,412 square miles. It has 6,640 miles of coastline, which is more than all the other 49 states together. This northernmost state can also boast about having the largest terrestrial predator in North America, the magnificent brown bear. Black bears and polar bears thrive here too. Bears can be found generally anywhere in the state, but the highest concentration of bears live in the coastal regions, especially in the warmer latitudes of the Gulf of Alaska coast and the Southeast Alaska Panhandle. Alaska also has a growing human population, and with it comes garbage. Lots of garbage. Garbage can be found anywhere near cities, towns, and villages, and is often disposed of in a designated place called a landfill. A variety of wild animals like eagles, foxes and seagulls, rats, crows, ravens, and wolves are drawn to garbage as a food source. But the most conspicuous wild animal at Alaska's landfills are the black and brown bears. When bears get into garbage, people generally see them as pests, a nuisance, and even as a curiosity. To the unsuspecting animals, their attraction to garbage is the start of a deadly game of Russian roulette. That all too often ends tragically for the bears.
My name is Glenn Miller, and I work for the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation in the solid waste program. I specialize in landfills. In my job, I travel around the state to landfills, and when I inspect the landfills, I look at different things there, and so one of the things that I became interested in is shooting videos of bears in landfills, and so I've been doing this for about 10 years. One of the most serious problems at the landfills are the bears. Bears are a good example of an unsafe condition because people are at the landfill and the bears are close by. At times it's dangerous because the bears are very close to the people. When a landfill has bear problems, it reflects poorly on the site in general. It makes it look as though, well, usually it is due to sloppy practices at the landfill. I think some of the communities could do a lot more to keep the bears out of the landfills.
Unfortunately, because of our budget, our workers are only on part-time. And the landfill can't be maintained with part-time workers.
We invite them in. We invite them in through the dump, and the way we take care of our garbage in the community. It is something to do with the treatment of garbage, but in a place as remote as this, truthfully, I don't know what you do.
We do have to deal with our bear and human concerns, and we're trying the best we can with what little money that we have.
Bears are portrayed in TV ads, at theme parks, and in a wide variety of commercial products as cute, cuddly, funny, and in books and movies as vicious man-killers. But what do people who live in bear country think?
The main message that people should have about bears is that they certainly are wild animals that can hurt you on the one extreme, and on the other extreme they're not cuddly animals to be picked up and held like a pet. But at the same time, they're not stalking animals that are out to get you or your children, that they, if left alone and given some space, that there's every chance in the world that there'll be no negative result from an encounter with a bear.
We have them around here all the time, and they don't bother. Yeah, they've chewed on my hose. You know, they seem to like plastics, and they've hung around here. They dug out my sewer one time, a little ways, you know, going to go down into my sewer thing. But what do I live in Alaska for? What do I live in the wild? It's more dangerous to live in Los Angeles, California, from the vehicles and everything and the drive-by shootings than it is living with the bear here. They're our friends, just like the whales are. I've been in this area for 67 years. And yeah, I have a 8.5-foot brown bear upstairs that charged me while deer hunting. I was calling on a deer call, and suddenly there it was, and I had to kill it. I shot it at 21 feet and from the hip. But I don't blame the bear. I don't blame the bear. He wasn't attacking me as a human. He was out for food, and he heard these, you know, a lot of animals are called on calls, predator animals, and he heard the call, thought it was a thing, and came, and yeah, he might have injured me. But I've told my wife I'm an avid hunter and outdoorsman, that if I get killed by a bear, make sure they don't kill off the bear.
I think it would be absurd to feed garbage to a bear at a zoo, as a, you know, and think of it as a healthy diet. They have a diet that they feed their bears, which, you know, their diet is they're omnivorous, and which means they eat both plants and meat and roots and all different sorts of things they find. But if you brought your garbage in, there are things in the garbage. For instance, you know, a bear might like the taste of shampoo or motor oil or antifreeze or some other things that could be really bad for them. Bears they will eat things that they shouldn't eat. I've heard stories of bears eating glass, for instance, just crunching up the glass and you know, just to get at the sweet soda pop or whatever is inside the glass, just eat the whole thing. If a bear eats something that makes it sick, you may not see that bear because other bears may chase it off, and you won't see a bear dead in the landfill. I've never seen a bear just fall over dead unless it was shot. But the bears will be chased off if they become sick, and people won't even notice that they died.
When there's a large supply of food, be it unnatural in this case, bears will crowd in and become more and more tolerant of each other's presence and even more tolerant of people as they're feeding at this food source. When the city, I should say, of Petersburg closed down the Petersburg dump, there were at least 30 black bears that were removed from that area, and similarly down in Ketchikan, about 40 bears were known habituated garbage feeders at the Ketchikan dump when it was closed down. I would say almost without exception that a bear that's killed in defense of life and property is generally a habituated bear, habituated to feeding on garbage. There are situations where if you startle an animal or you corner a bear or you get between a sow and her cubs, certainly you will have something play out there that's not necessarily related to garbage. But in those residential situations or landfill or close to landfill situations, yes, that's because bears have almost been encouraged to feed on garbage.
There are places where we have villages where they also have fishing lodges. A lot of times the people from the fishing lodge in the evenings will go over to the landfill just as if it was a zoo. In fact, I've seen it marked on community maps as, you know, the zoo, which is the dump, and that's where people go to see the bears. The operators of the landfill generally do not like the idea of people coming to the landfill to see the bears. It makes them uncomfortable because they have to work around there and they don't want the bears around there. So occasionally what happens is there are certain bears that become very bold, and the landfill operator, you know, sometimes they just feel it's unsafe to work there. So what they do is they call the police department, the police call the Fish and Game, they get permission to shoot the bear, and then they line up a bunch of guys and they just blast them. It happens quite frequently at landfills. The bears become a severe safety problem and they get shot. There was one case where I was on an inspection and they were forced to destroy a bear, and that was because the bear stepped on a sharp piece of metal and had a sore foot. It had a nice gash right across one of its pads, and then that bear became really aggravated. When people came around, it couldn't get away fast because its foot hurt, so it would charge, and they ended up destroying the bear.
People come to the dumps to deposit their garbage and they're charged by a bear. That's not acceptable to people. The bear loses.
I think that a lot of bears were destroyed as our nation grew because of garbage, and I think that it's happening here as well. I think after a time you'll see that the population of bears will be similar to what we have in my home state. I'm from Michigan originally, and I spent a lot of time out, fishing on streams in rather remote places, and I can only remember one time seeing bear tracks on a stream bank. One time at Angoon, somebody killed this female bear, and the bear had 2 cubs, and so there was this bear carcass in the garbage with all 4 paws and the head cut off, and these 2 little cubs just trying to snuggle with their mother, you know, in a burning garbage dump. If a female bear just keeps on breeding and bringing all of her cubs into the landfill, those cubs have almost no chance of surviving once they've been raised in a landfill for a couple of years. They're pushed off on their own. They go straight for the nearest village. They don't know anything about feeding themselves, and they're killed. So that really drags down, in my opinion, the population of the bears, because, you know, a lot of the breeding females are bringing their cubs into the dump.
Brown bears, our research on Northeast Chichikov showed that a female brown bear there did not come into the breeding part of the population until her 8th year, and then didn't reproduce but every 5 years. So the breeding interval was once every 5 years, and with a cub size of between 1 and 2 animals, that's a pretty low biotic potential for that population to maintain itself. Black bears, we don't have any hard research data from Southeast, but generally research from other areas show that they come into the breeding part of the population earlier, about 5 years. A landfill especially is a kind of a bear sink. It's a place where until it's dealt with, it will continue to attract bears. And just removing bears is not the answer. The problem is not bears, the problem is the improper handling of garbage. But certainly if we continue to allow bears to feed, and the human population is not accepting of bears coming in, and we kill bears, there will be an effect at some level of the population.
I'm worried that the population of bears in Southeast Alaska and other parts of Alaska will fall to these low density populations of bears. Really, what this is all about is bears being killed. I feel really strongly that the bears in southeast Alaska are threatened by garbage at the landfills. As people moved into other parts of the country, the population grew, people destroyed the bears' habitat, they shot the bears for hunting, they hunted the bears, but I think more importantly, the bears were attracted to the people's food. As soon as the people move in, the bears are gone. It's healthy for the ecosystem to have these large animals around, and I think we should try to keep them. This could be one of the only places on the planet where you have lots of people and lots of bears, and as the population of the human race grows around southeast Alaska, I'm hoping that we will still have bears. There's two ways that I've seen that are effective, very effective, in solving the problem with garbage bears at dumps. The first one is barge the garbage out. The second way you can solve this problem is by having an incinerator that burns at a high temperature for a long time and burns the garbage right down to a fine powdery ash, with a few tin cans in it. And then that ash can be safely bagged and stacked into a landfill that we call an ash monofill. So then that can be controlled, and that there will be no food odor at a landfill like that, and the bears won't be attracted to it. We get most of our supplies, our bulk commodities, come in by barge. And the barges come up full of supplies and materials, and they go back much lighter. We don't ship too much stuff out on the barges. So what we're talking about is getting a system where the barge goes from village to village and around to the different logging camps, and it'll stop. It'll have a regular weekly run. And so the garbage system, that sort of milk run, that barge, that weekly barge service, would take the garbage from all of the villages and towns and consolidate them into some sort of a system. That would cost, we estimate, several $1 million just to set up the system, set up all the transfer stations in the villages and make the arrangements. Then it would cost probably several $1 million per year for disposal costs and the barging costs.
My view on the garbage problem is it's a community problem. And it's not just a Fish and Game problem, it's not just a Department of Environmental Conservation problem, but it's an issue that a community as a whole needs to deal with. For example, in Juneau, some firm ordinances about where and when garbage cans are placed and the way residences are maintained as far as having material that attracts bears, that should be looked at. There should be some teeth put into ordinances that prohibit, or as much as possible, keep bears from becoming habituated to garbage in the first place and then later on causing problems for humans. Moving a bear doesn't seem to be an option because generally one of three things happen. The bear comes right back to the same location, it becomes a problem in another location, or thirdly, it's either killed by a bear in the location that it gets moved to, or it displaces another bear. So nothing is saved, basically, by moving a bear.
You can help save bears from being killed by ensuring your resident garbage cans are bear-proof. Contact your local Fish and Game office if you need assistance on how to do this.